All right, welcome folks to Jimmy and Neil Have Problems, where we talk about our problems. We talk about big problems, small problems, dumb problems, cool problems. Today, we have a very, I don't know if this is mundane, but today's problem is housing cost calculators don't include long-term costs like roof repairs. So when I moved to Grand Rapids, the housing market hadn't yet exploded, and I was paying like $1,000 in rent. I was like, this is stupid. I want to buy a house, but my manager kind of talked me out of it by, I was looking at these house costs comparisons and, Redfin and NerdWallet, and they were all like, "Oh my God, look how much cheaper it will be to own a home compared to renting an apartment." And my boss pointed out, like, "Look, that doesn't account for roof repair. That doesn't account for these like
You know,
20,
AC unit,
30, yeah,
furnace,
these like these $50,000 expenditures you often have to make per year on a house." He's like, look, like if you divide that $50,000 over 12 months, like all of a sudden renting and buying a house are
yep,
exactly the same.
yep.
Um, and so these calculators leave out a lot of the hidden costs of home ownership. And home ownership's great, but I think that renting gets a really bad rap. And I think it's partly because you have this kind of biased how the calculation that people make. Like I remember I've heard people say, "Oh, you pay 1,000 a month living in the city." Like, well, I only pay 650 on my, mortgage. And it's like, yeah, but you have a freaking mortgage and you've had to, replace the roof and your
hmm
furnace caught on fire. It's
Well,
like
and taxes,
property tax.
it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
apples and oranges,
Yeah.
right? And it's, deceptive because it's both, in units of dollars, but,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, renting, it's, pretty much what you pay one month is what you pay every month,
Exactly.
with minor variation, whereas for houses, it's, an uneven distribution.
Yeah, so I think that's really the critical lever is the distribution of cost. Like
Mhm.
renting is consistent and I think critically and excludes most long tail like risks. Like if the furnace goes out here, I don't pay for that. If
Yep.
someone breaks a window, I don't pay for that. Like those are
Yep.
the type of things that are really nice. Like our filter on our AC unit was bad. I didn't pay for that. Those are little things that add up.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So owning a home is inconsistent costs with large risks. And and two, I think, like I have renter's insurance. And if I don't have renter's insurance, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's not the end of the world if things go bad. Like I
Mhm.
wouldn't have to pay to replace the apartment, I don't think. Maybe I should double check that.
Well, I
But if
mean,
my I
if
didn't
there's
have home insurance,
negligence, yeah, but
you could, yeah. You'd have to work pretty hard to do that. Whereas I think it's a little bit easier to get in a bad spot with a home.
yep.
Um, yeah, so there's distribution of costs. That's one lever. I don't know if there's other levers here that
Um,
make sense.
well, I mean, there's also just like the size of property, right? The bigger something is, the more there is to go wrong,
I think
right?
that's a
So
very
with a
excellent
house,
point. Yeah.
you're talking about, two, three, or more bedrooms, and a couple bathrooms, whereas when you're renting, often it's a studio, one, two bedrooms, but a total of four rooms or something, so
Yeah.
there's just less to go wrong.
Well, and I think there's a lot of intangible things, or maybe not so intangible of like, in terms of upkeep. Like I don't have to upkeep the outdoors of my
Mhm.
apartment. Like someone takes care of that, and that's very nice. And that's an additional cost, having a lawnmower, having a weed whacker, having the gasoline for all those,
Yep.
repairing them, buying new ones. Like nobody thinks of that stuff, but it's you have to do
Yep.
it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and then there's the wild card of HOAs.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that can be
yeah.
rough. In the 99% Invisible book, they reference some like HOA, stories that go wrong. and it's, yeah, like there was some guy who had to be out of town, like taking care of like a dying child or something, and his lawn dies and he ended up going to jail because he doesn't follow the HOA, which is just
You
insane.
went to jail? What in the
Yeah,
world?
no, sometimes you go to jail for
What?
not having a green lawn.
Oh my God. That's what we had an HOA person that we had this, beloved basketball hoop that my neighbors had up, and our neighbor would paint the 3-point line and free throw line on. And I
Mhm.
mean, it had been there for 25 or 30 years. And the HOA person one day just came by and said it looked raggedy, and just overnight just took the basketball hoop away. I
No,
was livid.
it's
I was like, come on. Like, you
it's
can't
so
talk to someone
bizarre
face to
in,
face about something like that. Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
in a country that, you know so much about freedom, we're okay with HOAs having this, you know very prescriptive, view on what you can do on your own property.
Well, I know. Well, I remember what movie. Oh, it was a book. It was the Overstory. In that story, one of the big things that this rebel woman does, like it's kind of a very similar situation to this guy losing his, like, going to jail. Like,
Mhm,
this woman, her husband has had a stroke and he's not doing well, and
mhm,
so she kind of lets the yard go, but
mhm.
then really likes it and loves how many trees are growing up and how beautiful it is and how all the animals are coming back. And the HOA keeps sending people to cut her lawn, and she keeps saying, like, no, I like being surrounded by this beauty.
Yeah.
Like, no. And I forget eventually what they do. I think they try to take her to jail or something like that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
A little
maybe
bit of
that's a
a,
problem. HOAs have too much power. Yeah, those stories make me very upset. So, I mean, what we have for solutions right now is a calculator that takes age into account, like the age of the home buyer.
yeah. I
Yeah.
guess a bright spot is also just, having your inspector, that's part of the home buying process. They should identify, you know, things that will need to be, replaced, or things you need to be aware of.
Yeah. So essentially, like another solution is a calculator that prices in average maintenance costs.
Yeah. I wonder how, so yeah, I guess the question I have is,
Yeah.
what are these simple metrics that you can get good averages, on, you know, actual price, right? So given, some amount of data, you can, with good certainty predict how much things are going to cost. You know, if you knew everything about the house on the quantum level, you could be very certain on how much it's going to cost. But, at some point you can get, 80/20 rule,
Totally.
where it's, it might just be, the age of the house. And with that one number, you can, with,
Yeah.
a pretty high certainty, be able to predict it. But if that magical number lies beyond what, is publicly available, if you need to hire your inspector to collect that data set, then it's not overly helpful because you're pretty far in the home
Yes.
buying process.
If you're inspector, I feel
Yeah.
like home size, age, and location would probably be good. You know, like, so
Well,
a home in Michigan is going to have more wear and tear on the roof than in California.
yeah.
Um,
And then I guess, there's
yeah.
the internal data set and then there's the external data set where it's, you're just trying to map, a house like this to other similar houses.
Yep.
But if it's, if that granularity needs to be, okay, a house of this many square feet in, Granville, Michigan of this age, is there any like house, any good data like that house?
Yeah. Or what you could do is you could do some simple stuff like, all right, we're gonna take the square footage of the house and convert that into a roof and just say, here's all the expenses that if you own the home for 25 years, you're gonna have to deal with,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
say
You don't say
it's a
it's
two
going.
bathroom, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, yep, your furnace will die, likely in the next, 25 years. Count that in. You'll need to replace your roof. And we're not saying, in 3 years your furnace will go out, and then in 2 years after that it's the roof. But it's like, when you own this house, if you plan to do it for this many years, these are all the things that will need to be done. That's
Well,
an
and I mean, this is all stuff that's gone wrong. This is not even talking about upgrades because I think people talk about a home as an asset, and it's like more and more your home is an asset if you can spice it up to sell. I mean, right now the market is so hot, you don't even necessarily have to do that, but generally you're talking about upgrades. Like my parents are readying at some point to sell their house, and it's
yeah.
like, I mean, they've spent a lot of money getting the house in
It's
order, and you have
yeah,
to.
yeah, painting
Yeah.
and yeah,
And
yada
updating
yada yada.
cabinets, and I mean, there's a lot to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Whew. What other solutions? I feel like these are just calculators we have right now, like new kinds of calculators. I guess maybe, I mean, this is such a specific problem. Maybe that's okay.
I
I would
wonder
almost want to zoom out. Yeah.
what would like a leasing option be. So sort of, we rent houses and we buy houses, and we rent and buy cars, but we also lease cars. So, is there a lease option?
Yeah, like for a set period of time. And then basically this way you don't bear the burden of repairs, but you have like more of a stake than renting.
Although I guess, in that mapping, really renting a car is like getting a hotel room, and
I know.
leasing is like
Yeah.
renting a car.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's still an interesting like
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to remember there's this crypto home mortgage thing that was really interesting that I want to throw in here, but I don't remember the name. It'll take some
You could
digging.
also just do like budgeting, um where it's okay every month, your mortgage is, 700 a month, but you're just going to budget 1,000, and then that
Oh yeah,
300
yeah.
extra goes into, you know your rainy day fund.
Yeah, so over budget for your mortgage and put extra in a rainy day fund. So yeah, I wanna dig up this crypto thing, but I'll do that. I think I'll have to do that after this.
Yep.
I think I feel pretty good about that set of solutions. I thought I
And
like the
then
leasing. Oh yeah.
there's, the anti-fragile, where Nassim Taleb would just say, embrace that variability and get stronger from it. So when, it's really crappy and you need to replace your roof, you figure out where you have inefficiencies in your own budget. It's
Yeah.
not really a solution, but
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I wouldn't he argue for some type of he'd argue for the barbell method, so that's anti-fragile. So I don't know what that looks like in the
well,
frame of owning a home. I don't think it
but
would be just swallowing
no,
the
I think it
cost.
it would, because he advocates for, you know, um, like cities getting a variable amount of funding, right?
Yeah.
So then essentially having a variable cost is the same as receiving a variable amount of funding. because some
Yeah.
months you're lean and you have a lean cost, so you have excess, so
Yeah.
you go and have fun. And then
Yeah.
and strategically, like, okay, how can we invest this and replace our washing machine because we think it's going to die soon. And then you know when the roof dies, it's like, oh crap, we have a big expenditure. Let's tighten that belt and let's get stronger from this, and realize, oh, we go out to eat 6 times a week. We don't need to do that. That's expensive.
Well,
And
or
you
like,
clean up that inefficiency.
is there such a thing as roof insurance? Like, I feel like he would advocate for something more like that, because I mean, this is a roof needing replaced is more of a black swan event than I think it is normal variability. Because that's like, I mean, to have, what is it, like 25 grand? Like, to have that on hand is a lot. This is not
Yeah,
like a washer or dryer. Where I feel like washer or dryer is more of like, yeah, anti-fragile, like just roll with the punches. You go out a little less because you spent $1,000 on a laundry machine, Like, this is
yeah.
25 laundry machines, that's a big event. This
But
could
it's
be,
also not, a single payment event,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
right? Like, no one's gonna say, okay, we're gonna put the roof on and you need to pay us, all up front.
Hmm. Hmm. So you'd pay in installments?
Yeah, I assume so.
Oh, I thought you had to pay up front.
No.
I thought generally for a lot of these jobs, like if you get a bathroom redone and that's 10
No,
grand, you generally
no,
have to pay.
you can get payments on everything. You
Yeah,
buy
guess I
something
don't
for a
really
hundred
like
bucks on
payments.
Amazon, you can pay in payments.
That's dumb. Well, maybe it's not dumb. I don't know.
I,
I don't like it.
I agree that for that, that's dumb, but for a roof,
Yeah. Yeah, for a roof, I think it starts to make sense.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a line between a black swan and just a anti-fragile variation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on how much cost that is. Just roofs just feel like I'm terrified of roofs. They just seem like a giant money hole. Um, okay. Let's see. Are
Well,
you ready to rate?
there's some other
Or
connections.
oh, there are.
Yeah. I mean, nudge.
Yep.
We talk about sort of the prediction model. They talk about, and noise. That's what I meant. But
Oh,
nudge also works,
yeah, nudge can
right?
be
And
used
right
here.
now we're actually nudging in the wrong direction, right? We're being nudged where we see what the mortgage payment is, and it's like, oh, that's cheaper, so we're nudging towards home ownership, which I guess is a fine thing to nudge towards.
Uh, yeah.
um and then noise, the second one.
Yep.
um yeah, and they talk about model making, and how many variables do we need, um which we touched on. um
Yeah. So basically, right now, like the model is not great, and we're not taking into
y-
account some of the key variables.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and we reference uh Taleb, so I don't know if we want to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And specifically anti-fragile, right? It's been
Anti-fragile,
so long
well,
since.
it's anti-fragile and black swan, pretty solidly.
Yeah.
um
I'm not typing well right now. My computer's struggling. Um, are both referenced because these are the primary risks of owning a home, you
yeah,
know?
I mean, really, this problem comes down to, is this, normal variability, in which case it's anti-fragile, and we should embrace that,
Yeah.
volatility, or is it black swan events where it's these single events that just totally dominate, whatever category it is.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
looking at our graph analysis here, I think landlords are often predatory is a very relevant problem here. I think this is a fair critique of renting. I think people say, I don't want to
Yeah.
be, victim to someone else. And like, I think that's probably why we nudge towards homeownership.
Yeah.
Because theoretically, this could be a really great thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sort of it's, choose your master. Is it your landlord or the bank? But, banks,
Yeah.
typically are pretty favorable, you know, and
Yeah.
they're a pretty, highly regulated industry, sort of. Not the big banks and investment, but it's like, okay, you're gonna go to a bank and they're insured and they're yada yada yada. For
Yeah.
house lending, they're gonna give you
And it's
an okay
clear what's
rate.
gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, basically all it is, you're getting a clear rate. Whereas
Mhm,
there's no
sort of.
clarity to a landlord. Like, how do you judge a landlord? There's a lot of ways you can judge a bank and judge you know, a loan, but
Well, and then it's also
judging a
interesting
landlord is
where,
hard.
you know, if you choose a house, you can choose a house and then choose your bank. Whereas with renting, you can't choose a location and then choose a landlord.
You don't get to choose a landlord at all. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you do in the sense that you choose where you live, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We need to rate so we can get on to our last problem for the day. All right. I've got, I think, all my ratings. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Motivation.
I
What
give
is
a
your rating?
0.
I think I'm gonna give a 1, just because I look at houses a lot. I'm a freak about Zillow. All right. Speed to failure.
I give a 0.
I'm gonna give a 1. There's a lot of public data out there and available. Like, you could easily do location, square footage, and age of a home
Yeah, but then
and start to get somewhere.
you can create a model really quickly, but how do you actually figure out if that, how do you check if that model's right?
I think you just do the I'm gonna see what it costs lifetime and cost average that. Say, okay, let's assume you own this home for 25 years and you have to replace everything. Like, how much is that going to cost? And then,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Maybe.
simple. It's not the greatest one, but I think it gives you a better proxy. All
I
right,
give an
impact.
impact of 1.
Yeah, I think this would be. I think people would think twice about going and buying a home versus renting if they were more into this. What do you think this is? A bud
But
or in terms of category? Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I agree. All right. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Let us know how you think about this problem, how you think about home ownership versus apartment and renting.